All right, let's talk about one of the most exciting things happening in tech right now, the rise of open source AI. I'm telling you, this is a world that's getting more powerful and, believe it or not, easier for everyone to access, like every single day. So, you've probably heard of ChatGPT. I mean, who hasn't? But that is just the very, very tip of the iceberg. The real question, the one we're going to dig into, is what happens when you peek behind that curtain? What else is out there beyond those big, polished products? Well, let's find out. I want you to think of this as our own little expedition into the open source frontier. See, this is a place where the actual code, the data, even the AI models themselves are all shared out in the open. That means anyone, and I mean anyone, can use them, tweak them, and build something new on top of them. It's a totally different way of thinking compared to the closed-off, secret models we usually hear about. So, on our tour today, we're going to meet the key players. These are the models that are really shaping this whole open landscape. If you want to know where all this is headed, these are the names you absolutely need to know. And our first stop has to be LLaMA, which comes from Meta. Seriously, you can't even have a conversation about the open source AI boom without mentioning LLaMA. When they decided to release these incredibly high-quality models for free, it just sent a shockwave through the entire industry. It kicked off this whole new era of creativity and, frankly, intense competition. So what's the big deal with LLaMA? It's the sheer range. Yeah, sure, they've got these massive, super powerful versions. But for a lot of people, the real magic is in the smaller models, some with just 3 billion parameters. Now, you can think of parameters as basically the little knobs and dials that control how smart the model is. By putting out these smaller, but still really capable models, Meta made it possible for pretty much anyone to run top-tier AI right on their own personal computer. That's the key. They made it accessible. Okay, let's keep moving and see what's next. Let me introduce you to Mistral. They're a super innovative French company that's been making some serious waves. And they have a really, really clever way of building their models to be both powerful and efficient. And this right here, this is their secret sauce. It's a technique called mixture of experts. So instead of having one giant brain trying to know everything, they use a whole team of smaller, specialized expert models. When you ask it something, it smartly sends your question to the right expert for that specific job. It's just a ridiculously efficient way to get amazing performance. Now, this field is exploding, so here's a quick rundown of some other big names you should know. You've got Quen from Alibaba Cloud. Don't sleep on that one. It's incredibly powerful. Then there's Gemma from Google, which is kind of like the open source cousin to their main model Gemini. They even have a teeny tiny 270 million parameter version. Microsoft is in the game with Phi, which is known for being great at commercial stuff. And hey, even OpenAI recently jumped in with GPT OS, which just goes to show you how big of a deal this whole open source thing has become. But about 6 months ago, this one model just completely took everyone by surprise. And it wasn't because it was the most powerful thing ever. No. When people started talking about DeepSeek, the conversation was different. What was so incredible was the massive leap forward in efficiency. And this right here, this tells you the whole story. I mean, just look at that comparison. OpenAI reportedly spent over $100 million training their GPT models. The DeepSeek team, they got to that same frontier level for around $4 million. This wasn't just a small improvement. It was a total game changer for the economics of building top-tier AI. So you're probably wondering, how on earth did they pull that off? Well, they used this super clever process called distillation. Here's how it works. First, they built one enormous 67 billion parameter model. Then, they had that giant model just crank out tons and tons of high-quality synthetic data. And finally, they took all that new data and used it to teach smaller, already existing open source models like LLaMA and Quen. They were basically distilling all the knowledge from the giant brain into these smaller, much more efficient students. Just an amazing technique. Okay, so now we've met the major players, but how do you, actually use them? Turns out, there are really 3 main ways to go, and they range from super simple apps to getting your hands dirty and running the code yourself. Path number 1 is what most people are used to. Packaged products. Think ChatGPT. You're not just using the model, you're using a polished app with a nice interface. Path number 2 is cloud APIs. This is for developers who want to call a model that's hosted by a company like OpenAI or Google. And then there's path number 3, which is where open source really gets exciting, direct inference. That's where you download the model and run it right there on your own machine. And that brings up a word you'll hear a lot: inference. I know it sounds technical, but don't let it fool you. It's actually super simple. Inference is just the fancy term for running the model. That's it. When you give it some input and it spits out an answer, you're doing inference. So let's really focus on that third path, running AI right on your own PC. This is where the open source world just completely opens up. We're going to look at the two main toolkits you can use to set up your own little AI camp on your computer. When you decide to run AI locally, you basically have two main choices. On one side, you've got Hugging Face transformers. This is for when you want total control and flexibility. You're literally grabbing the raw code of the model and running it yourself. Then on the other side, you've got LLaMA, which is all about making your life easy. It's a neat little packaged app that handles all the complicated stuff for you, so you can get up and running like instantly. Here's probably the best way to think about it. Using Hugging Face is like you're the engineer, working directly with the raw parts of the engine. It's incredibly powerful, but you gotta know what you're doing. Using a LLaMA, on the other hand, is like being the driver of a perfectly pre-built, optimized car. You just get in, use the simple controls, and go. Both will get you where you need to be, but the experience is completely different. And that's it. You're basically equipped now. We've gone from LLaMA all the way to DeepSeek, from using cloud services to running these amazing models on your own laptop with something like a LLaMA. You now have a map to this incredible, fast-growing, and honestly super accessible world of open source AI. So I guess the real question is, for you, now that these ridiculously powerful tools aren't locked away in some company's expensive data center anymore, now that they're available to anyone with a computer, the possibilities are just endless. The only real limit is your own imagination. So what are you going to create?